What's going on, Legionnaires, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor and hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, and help me grow this channel. Also, so you don't miss any of the freaking awesome content we have coming out every single week. Now, it's the weekend, which means we do our Indie Comics Weekend. And for this video, we're going to be covering something new. We're going to be covering The Illusion Witch. Now, this is issue number 1. It's written and self-published by Ruben Romero. The art is by Andrea Errico. Colors are by PH. And if you're interested in checking this comic out, if you want to buy it, I'll leave links down in the description. It'll be links to his Facebook and Instagram. You can message him directly and you can ask him to buy a copy. Now, with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright guys, so as we dive into this is really an origin story. This is a really origin issue. And we pick up with Adia. Now, Adia, she tells us of a story. Her story, if you will. Now, her infatuation with magic, with the art of illusion, it started at a very early adolescent age. It started with her father. Her father was magnificent at the sleight of hand, especially to a child. And he would constantly practice new magic tricks and sleight of hand tricks. And he would also occasionally teach her this. And so slowly, she began to learn the art of illusion. And that's what brings us to her teenage years. It brings us to her first act. Now, she's going by the name of the Illusion Witch, which is a kind of play on the illusionist. But she thinks it's clever, she likes it, it's unique, and she really wants to go with it. And her father has been ever so encouraging all the way through this. And she gets up there with the confidence, with the courage instilled in her from her father. And as she got older, all of her illusions, they got harder. They got more elaborate. Until one day, as she's making her journey up, something knocks her down a peg. And that something being her father taking ill. Everything that she had worked towards felt like it was falling apart. But as her father died, as he was dying, she was offered a European tour opening up. This was essentially all of her dreams coming true, and she accepted it. She went on this tour, and in doing so, she wasn't there when her father died. And a huge, tremendous guilt weighed on top of her, but her continuing to do this kept her going. The illusions kept her alive. That was until her son Hunter was born, because she met a man named James, and they brought Hunter into this world, and she had a whole new hope. And so for 6 years, she was happy as could be. But then Hunter got sick as well. And yet again, another person she loved was being taken from her. And she did what she knew best to do, and that was to run. She couldn't watch her son slowly fade away. And so she wasn't there the day that her son died either. And James, he hated her for this. He resented her. And so after Hunter's death, Adia, she really turned to anything else. Everything else. Anything to find that rush. Anything being on that stage couldn't fix. Like the nightmares she dealt with every single night. Now this is when we pick up in present day. And she's kind of older. She's definitely a woman at this point. And we see her sitting in bed, smoking, drinking, and there's a half-naked woman also sitting in the bed. Now this is where we start to learn really what kind of personality she's built up over the years due to all of this trauma. And she's built a really cold, dark persona where she has walls built up around her. Obviously not letting anybody close. And, you know, she treats this individual that's in her bed very rudely, very poorly, just tells her, you know, it's time for you to get out of here. You know, we all know this as a defense mechanism. You know, some would call her a shitty person these days, but really she's okay with that. She's come to deal with it. And really she's cut herself off from all emotions entirely. This way she doesn't get hurt. There's no one to let her down. There's no one to die on her. There's nothing. There's no attachments. All except for Luis, her manager, and her dad's old stagehand. But really, she keeps him around for nothing more than the connections, or at least that's the way she tries to play it off. And as she's leaving for the day, we see her talk to it looks like somebody that works for her, maybe a butler or something of that nature. His name is Victor, and she's very rude to him, just telling him, bossing him around, telling him to get everything taken care of, and it needs to be taken care of yesterday. You know, we're really seeing that she is just not a nice person. She's very rude, she's very snobby, she's very uptight. She's definitely not somebody that you would see as any kind of hero in any situation. Now this is where we pick up in the land of Sarai, in the Wanderer's Tavern. And we have a man named Kelvin. And Kelvin is sitting here battling some kind of arachnid. And this is much different than where we just were. This is much different turn from the reality we were just sitting in. Now Kelvin, he's doing his best and putting up one heck of a fight against this arachnid, but it eventually spits a web and sticks him to the wall. But this arachnid, it's not here to kill him. It's here to pin him down because somebody else wants to talk to him. And this is when we see some kind of hideous monster come through a portal. Now this thing's got 3 freaking heads, it's tentacles, it seems to even be floating. Maybe it's not, maybe it's just walking on its tentacles. But whatever this thing is, it's a freaking monster. And it comes up to Kelvin and it asks him where the key is. All the heads telling him to give them the answer because they need this key. Now this is when we pick up in one of the many forests of Sarai. And we see what appears to be maybe a ferret, maybe even a weasel. Some kind of tube-shaped rodent, if you will. Now, this little thing, it's making its way through the forest. And it looks to have some kind of pouch, as well as a key wrapped around its neck. Now, this little guy, he is on a mission. And it appears he can also talk, because the whole time he's talking to himself. And he's telling Kevlin to hold on, that he's going to return with her. Now her, we can only assume, is the illusion witch. And as this little critter makes his way up to the top of this mountain, he comes across a door. And he takes the key around his neck and he puts it in this door. And this door opens him up to a whole new world. Now back in Adia's reality, she's preparing for her next illusion. And she's on the set and she's just being her normal self. She's bossing everybody around. She's just being rude, being unkind to everybody around her. But also nobody questions her. Nobody stops her. Nobody confronts her. They just agree. They get the job done and they do exactly as she tells them to do. Now this is where she gets a phone call from James. And she ignores this call. She doesn't want to talk to him. Because at the end of the day, she feels like James has been guilt tripping her into coming to a fundraiser for cancer that was made for her son. It was done in honor of him. And he really wants her to be there for that. And he said many cruel things. He apologizes to her. So we're just seeing a really, really broken relationship. You know, and it has nothing more to do with the fact that they had a child die. You know, and many couples, they don't make it through that. That's really hard to get through. And this is when we see Adia. She's sitting in the bathroom, looks to be smoking a joint, and just staring at this voicemail, questioning if she even wants to listen to it. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't want to feel guilty. She doesn't want to feel these emotions, and that's why she avoids talking about it and talking to him. Now this is when we pick up with 2 hikers, and they're making their way through the mountains, really trying to get a view of a really awesome sunset. But this is when they see a doorway open and they see the little critter come out of this doorway. And he tries talking to them, asking where in America he is. But the people, they freak out. They immediately panic and they run away in the opposite direction. And so then he tries to go talk to some bears. Some bears that are passing by, and the bears ignore him. They probably can't understand him. They don't speak English. And so, you know, kind of out of options, not really knowing where he needs to go, he pulls out something from his bag, plants a little seed in the ground, and we see a little bubble, a little glowing pink bubble come from it, and it pops. And this grants him a little bit of magic. And he tells it to find Adia Locke. And the magic sweeps him up off of the ground and sends him flying through all of the places that Adia might be, until finally arriving where she is doing her act. Now this final act she's doing, her dad had developed this act. And so for her, this is kind of perfecting her father's work, having his legacy live on in some kind of manner. And what we see is her jump up and dive at what appears to be into glass, only for her to vanish. And the crowd goes crazy. We hear thunderous applause as she makes her way back into her dressing room, grabbing some alcohol on the way back, only to go into her room and find our little critter friend sitting in her room, letting her know that his world is in trouble and that she is the only one who can save it. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I personally think this is a lot of fun. You know, it definitely took a way left turn than I thought it was going to be. You know, we pick up in a whole different world with magic and all kinds of craziness, and a little ferret coming up and being like, hey man, like, we need your help. Classic fairy tale storybook stuff with a definitely adult twist onto it. So yeah, I really do love it. The writing, I think, is really on point. The artwork, they did a phenomenal job. Both pencils and colors was done really well. I really did enjoy the lettering as well. I feel like lettering's not talked about a lot when it comes to reviews, but the lettering was very well done and definitely made everything very distinguishable. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have not yet, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. Help me grow this channel to even bigger heights. And be sure you're not missing any of the freaking content we have coming out, because we're dropping new episodes every week, multiple days out of the week. And with that being said, until the next breakdown.